Kaido, the world's strongest creature, Madara Uchiha, the ghost of the Uchiha. Two titanic villains that have been hyped up both on their own worlds, be it by sheer reputation for their overwhelming power or the fear that their strength has produced. Today, we're gonna find out which of these two comes out on top. There isn't a lot I could say about Madara Uchiha that hasn't already been said. Since this is the first time I'll be talking about him in a video, I will go over some of the things that make him an absolute monster. Before the inclusion of Six Paths characters like the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, Six Paths, Naruto and Sasuke, Hagoromo, and Kaguya, Madara is without a doubt one of the top tier ninjas of the verse. He single-handedly took out the entirety of a platoon which included a clone of Naruto and two Kage. He fought the 5 Kage for multiple hours, and while using his full power, the perfect Susanoo, he absolutely no-diffed them. He fought the likes of Hashirama Senju to the death, KCM2 Naruto, the 9-tailed beasts, 8 Gates Might Guy, and 6 Paths Naruto and Sasuke. There are at least 3 different versions of Madara that I feel are fair matchups for Kaido. EMS Madara, One-Eyed Sage Mode Madara, and 10 Tails Jinchuriki Madara. I'll be going over any relevant feats or information for each part of the fight since Madara's toolkit drastically changes with each version. I will be including Edo Tensei feats since it was stated by Hashirama that Madara was regaining his past strength after he got revived. So even with the Rinnegan and Wood style, it's still implied that Madara is weaker while reanimated. I will not be using any Edo version because Kaido has no way of sealing him away. Unlike Kaido, there are multiple versions of him that can be used for this fight, while Kaido only really has one version that has quantifiable feats as of now. I have also already talked about Kaido extensively in my last video, but there is some information that I skipped over since I didn't think it would be necessary, so when the time comes, I will bring it up. The fights will take place in one of those wastelands from Dragon Ball, daytime. The power systems will not be equalized, so with all of that out of the way, let's begin. I am just going to start this off by saying EMS Madara gets absolutely stomped. I genuinely could not think up of a single thing that EMS Madara could do to take down Kaido, let alone hurt him. As I mentioned in my previous video, the most important thing in any fight is the win condition. Without it, there is no way you can win a fight. EMS Madara does not have any jutsu, at least that I am aware of, that can pierce Kaido's scales or do enough damage to bring him down. This is a list of the jutsu that Madara has used on screen and in the manga that he could perform in his EMS version. He doesn't have Hashirama cells, he doesn't have the Rinnegan, none of these jutsu have the attack potency to take down Kaido, let alone hurt him. As a reminder, because Kaido ate the fish fruit, Mythical Zoan model Azure Dragon, Kaido's skin became covered in scales that increased his durability to unparalleled levels. He doesn't really take damage from conventional attacks or techniques. The amount of force that is required to hurt him, let alone go through his skin even in base, is ridiculous, nearly to the point where Eustace Kid was surprised to find out that he could even be hurt by physical blows. The best method to hurt Kaido is to either bypass his dragon scales by using an attack that ignores durability or using advanced armament / advanced conqueror's haki, which also bypasses durability. You basically have to destroy him from the inside out or hit him with an attack that has higher AP than his scales. Madara has neither. There is no way to quantify his fire style jutsu, let alone the temperature, to be as powerful as Kaido's blast breath. Madara told the Kage when they attempted to seal him with their combination jutsu that he would respond in kind with his full power, being the perfect Susanoo. Releasing the sword itself had enough power to slice 2 mountaintops from a distance. A drunk Kaido casually fired a blast breath at a mountain and blew both it and a castle away from a large distance. That means Kaido's blast breath and Madara's Susanoo's sword swings should be at least comparable. Kaido himself tanked his own blast breath after having it get sent back to him by Gear 5 Luffy. Comedic effects aside, he also immediately shrugged it off with 0 residual damage. We also know that it's possible to force the user out of the Susanoo with brute strength alone, as Jigen did to adult Sasuke, and Kaido has a habit of going for the head. Even if you could argue that Kaido somehow doesn't have the striking power to force Madara out of his perfect Susanoo by attacking the head, he should be able to inject his Haki through the headpiece with advanced armament Haki and still cause damage. None of Madara's fire-style jutsu come even remotely close to this level of devastating power. He does have shadow clones, but he never displayed the ability to use Susanoo with his shadow clones, only with wood clones. Even then, he has never shown the capability to be able to create shadow clones that can use perfect Susanoo. Or else, why wouldn't he have just used it against Hashirama in their battle to the death? He can't really use Genjutsu on Kaido because Kaido doesn't have chakra. Genjutsu works by altering the flow of chakra within a target to mess with their 5 senses. Kaido does not have chakra, therefore it should not work. Madara should be sub-relativistic. He can keep up with the Raikage going at full speed and with Inoki on his back, however they seem to be capable of landing plenty of hits on him, and A was never hard blitzed by Madara. Madara hit him and Inoki in the air with the other Kage, which isn't really a hard blitz since the Raikage doesn't have air mobility, so that falls more on Inoki, and when Madara catches him in a Genjutsu, he was distracted by Tsunade. Madara never hard dodges the Raikage, so while he does scale to a relative speed tier, he never outright dodges or hard blitzes A while he uses top speed. There is a feat of Madara blocking KCM2 Naruto's Tailed Beast Rasengan. KCM Naruto blitzed the Raikage's top speed punch at point blank range, however, there really isn't a multiplier for how much faster KCM2 is, and even then, this is at best a reaction based feat and not a combat/movement speed feat, since the rest of their clash revolved around Madara using the Wooden Dragon Jutsu before the 10 Tails awakened. Hashirama also doesn't have any light speed feats, and he was the closest rival to Madara and on average considered stronger, so EMS Madara should be much slower than Kaido. One more thing I want to add is that Edo Tensei does weaken the reanimated ninja by an unquantifiable amount. While some ninja like Minato, Itachi, and Sarutobi were stronger as Edo Tensei than when they were alive, it's not possible to quantify how much slower the Edo Tensei are than when they were alive. His physical body should be capable of withstanding at least island level attacks, scaling off of Ace punches when he got blitzed early into their fight. He also would have gotten one shot by Tsunade's punch if he wasn't an Edo Tensei, since it blew half of his body apart. For reference, even Tsunade's punches can't hurt Kaido because of his dragon scales. Kaido's striking power should be higher, and he can also cause internal damage to Madara off of one hit, which Madara has no way of healing without Izanagi. If he uses Izanagi at that point, he most likely loses because he would lose sight in one of his eyes. Catching Kaido off guard also shouldn't be possible since he is slower, and Kaido should at least have Observation Haki active. Observation Haki and Future Sight can be turned on and off separately, and I don't believe Kaido fights without at least having Observation Haki active. For reference, Observation Haki grants access to a kind of extrasensory perception that can allow the user to sense presence, strength, emotion, and intention. With it, you can perceive enemies who lurk hidden out of sight, grasp their numbers, and even what they are attempting to do next. In other words, Kaido can sense a person's aura and know if they are camouflaging, hiding behind buildings or objects. He can also sense their intent to act in the immediate future, and it allows him to predict what they are about to do. In other words, it's a pseudo-precognition. I know that the Sharingan does technically grant a pseudo-precognition as well with its kinetic vision, but Madara has been consistently tagged by characters of a similar speed tier, so I don't think it would make much of a difference. I know some may say that Madara wouldn't lose very quickly, and the fight would go on for a while, but I disagree. Madara fought Hashirama for approximately 24 hours, give or take, and Kaido fought Big Mom for about 3 days. Madara's fight was against an opponent of similar speed and strength like Kaido and Big Mom, who he had fought against for years and probably knew better than anyone else. Eventually, Madara is going to run out of chakra, while Kaido can keep using his Devil Fruit abilities without much limit. It is possible to run out of Haki after using it for longer fights. Kaido seems to be the exception, at least when he gets drunk, because his Haki was getting stronger as his fight with Luffy dragged out, but I don't think this version of Madara would push him to that point. He's not fast enough to stop Kaido from hitting him, and he doesn't have any attacks that can bypass Kaido's scales. I can't think of a way that he can realistically win. Moving on to round 2, things become more interesting with One-Eyed Sage Madara, which I will be referring to as OS Madara. He gains Hashirama cells to regenerate his body, Hashirama's Sage Mode, Wood-style Jutsu, and the Rinnegan, including all 6 paths of pain and Limbo. This is probably the most powerful version of Madara before he absorbs the Ten Tails and gains the following jutsu. Hashirama said Madara was regaining his past strength after he was revived by Obito. Madara did absorb Sage Mode from Hashirama before this statement. Sasuke was able to pierce through Madara's skin relatively easily with a sword when he stabbed him through his arm, implying that even with the addition of Sage Mode, Madara's body can still be hurt by Kaido. Later on, his movements were stopped by Gaara, and he was knocked around by the tailed beasts. The combination of physical blows had Madara visibly bleeding from his mouth and body. He was capable of breaking through Gaara and the Shukaku's Grand Sand Mausoleum with a full-body Susanoo, but was hard blitzed by KCM2 Kurama Avatar Naruto. The tailed beast Tail Slam also destroyed his Susanoo and completely ripped off an arm. Madara gets away even more injured. He also recognized during his monologue that he was in pain, albeit he didn't show any signs of physical pain, which alludes to a high pain tolerance. He uses Limbo against the tailed beast, knocking all of them away and downing them long enough to enchain them with the Ghetto Mazo. Limbo has enough strength to knock down half of Kurama and Gyuki, which are perfect Jinchuriki. Granted, this attack can be considered an off-guard moment since none of them could have braced themselves for it or could have expected it. One thing I also want to add is that Madara would most likely not use Izanagi while in this version because it could mean he loses his Rinnegan, as a result thereby most likely losing Limbo as well. I do think he will be able to catch Kaido off guard with the Limbo clone, since it's stated in a databook that anyone connected to the real world can't sense its presence. Kaido shouldn't be capable of sensing the Limbo clone even with observation haki, and the clone should be immune to any damage and have equal abilities to Madara. However, it will have to return to him after a time frame. One thing I need to make very clear is that Madara's Limbo clones, even as the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, have never displayed the ability to use Jutsu. They have strictly used Taijutsu, and the statement equal ability may imply more towards physical capabilities, so I won't be considering any possible Jutsu shenanigans from the Limbo clones unless he's used them already. I do think Madara's odds of winning increase drastically. Between the Limbo clones and the possible win condition through the Human Path's soul-stealing Jutsu, he now has both a win condition and a harder toolkit to deal with Kaido's Unga Bunga fighting style. Some will say Madara can drop a meteor or two on Kaido or create a forest with giant flowers to force him to lose consciousness, but I don't think either of these options will work. Madara can't use Tengai Shinsei because it's a jutsu that takes both the user and enemy out at the same time. Madara only used it because he was an Edo and could just regenerate. Even then, if he did use the jutsu, he would most likely take more damage than Kaido. If I use some calcs, the size alone of the first meteor is about 15 kilometers in height and 12 kilometers in diameter using pixel scaling. Kaido's Flame Dragon Bagua, which is his strongest attack, was longer than Onigashima, which is 57 kilometers in diameter. As for the flowers, Kaido would probably find them annoying at first and blow them away with Blast Breath or with his Dragon Demolition Twister that was stated to be like a natural disaster and even generated tornadoes. Madara's best answer should be using the Human Path to rip Kaido's soul out, since he still doesn't have many options to actually hurt Kaido long term. None of his jutsu I listed before should have the capability to break through his scales, and his full power should still be the perfect Susanoo. I also don't think the Limbo clone is as impossible to answer as some may believe it is. Kaido would more than likely realize that Madara is using a strange technique that he can't either sense or stop. His answer to everything might be big bonk, but Kaido isn't stupid. If he has advanced observation haki active from that point forward, then he should be able to dodge the Limbo clone with ease. Just because he can't sense Limbo does not mean he can't see into the future and know when exactly he would be hit. He doesn't need to know how the technique works, just when it will hit. Not to mention, Madara would have to hold down Kaido somehow for long enough to rip out his soul. It's not an instant win if he gets a hold of it, as we saw with Naruto and B versus Nagato. Madara still doesn't have many options for when Kaido inevitably lands a hit, and even though he can heal with Hashirama cells, he also said that having them makes him fight more carelessly. I also want to add that Madara's healing factor is a bit strange. He can heal from wounds like when Sasuke stabbed him, but he was absorbing Nine-Tails chakra from a random shinobi's cloak, and he didn't start healing until afterwards. After he was comboed by the tailed beasts and lost his arm, he also didn't seem to heal whatsoever from the combination of attacks. He was hard blitzed by KCM2 Naruto, and I don't believe this version of Naruto is even remotely as fast as Kaido. Currently in the manga, Gear 5 Luffy has fought multiple times with Kizaru, who is made of light and has been actively trying to complete his orders of killing Vegapunk. Against Gear 4 Snake Man Luffy, Kizaru showed that acceleration is power and further increased his speed beyond the initial light speed that his Devil Fruit grants. He also blitz dodged one of Luffy's Snake Man jet culverines that should be faster than the beams of light shot by Pacifista. Kizaru hard blitzed Snake Man Luffy and later got grabbed by Gear 5 Luffy and got hard yeeted out of Egghead's top dome. He could turn into light before hitting the ocean and seemingly reappeared in front of Luffy at the speed of light. Their entire fight is a testament to how fast Luffy is at this point in the story, and he is only going to get more impressive feats. Luffy even intercepted a beam shot at Vegapunk where his starting position was above and away from the lab, and Kizaru shot the laser before Luffy moved. He intercepts the beam without any prior movement shown. These are FTL feats, and Gear 5 Luffy got hard blitzed by Kaido thrice. Once when his head was smashed through the roof, the second time when Kaido hit him from behind the head after he reactivated Gear 5th, and finally when he got hit with one of the most savage series of consecutive bonks I have ever seen. All of this is to say, OS Madara more than likely won't win. If he uses Chibaku Tensei, Kaido turns into a 2-kilometer long dragon and bursts through just like 8-Tails Kurama. His Susanoo doesn't get any new attacks or abilities, the Wood Dragon Jutsu suppresses chakra, which Kaido doesn't have, and his dragon form is simply bigger. He has to hold down Kaido and also make physical contact to rip out his soul, and nothing is stopping Kaido from swatting him away with faster reaction speed. The Limbo clone may land some hits at first, but eventually Kaido may just dodge it with Future Sight. It has to return to Madara. It can't be used for a while after that, as stated by Sasuke, and I don't believe that it's physically strong enough to wrestle down Kaido when he's 23 feet tall. As for the Wood Clone Susanoo, they are weaker than the Perfect Susanoo, and Tsunade was able to knock them down, so I don't think they would be able to overwhelm Kaido. Unless you have a hyper-specific scenario where Madara uses Wood Clone, Susanoo, Limbo, and tries to Human Path Kaido all at the same time. He also has limited chakra reserves, and in personality he does enjoy his fights, so he wouldn't immediately go for the kill. Madara is arrogant and likes to test his opponent's strength. Kaido may enjoy a fight, but only if his opponent doesn't go down, and he always tries to kill his opponents, or at least puts them down with his first few attacks. Kaido is hard blitzing anything this version of Madara does, and if I'm going to be honest, 10-Tails Madara still isn't faster than him. Speaking of 10-Tails Madara, this is the final version we will use for the versus battle. Now I know I said Kaido is still faster, but this is much more complicated than a simple blitz and kill. This final version of Madara gets the following jutsu. It may be less overall, but Madara's added arsenal in addition to the near limitless chakra he gains from the 10-Tails makes him an absolute monster. As the Jinchuriki of the 10-Tails, Madara gains a nearly immortal body capable of regenerating from an attack as powerful as Night Guy, which not only could bend space, but nearly killed him, leaving half of his body destroyed and melting. His durability increases to absurd amounts, being capable of withstanding Sekizo, which is a consecutive series of punches that use blasts of air to attack the target, and one of those landed directly on him, with the worst outcome being him bleeding from his mouth. Although Naruto was able to cut him completely in half with a lava-style Rasen Shuriken, he's virtually immune to ninjutsu, so only senjutsu and taijutsu can be used against him. Taijutsu is physical damage and martial arts. I do think Kaido matches up against him quite well because he mostly goes for physical attacks, which are also coded in Haki, and his blast breath and dragon demolition slashes aren't ninjutsu, so they should be effective. That's not to say this fight will be easy for him. Madara's speed should be much higher thanks to the addition of 6-Path Senjutsu, which not only increases his physical parameters, but also gives him awareness of his surroundings. I wouldn't say it's as good as Future Sight, but it's much better precognition than base Sage Mode. Through my research, I found that Madara's speed should be at least FTL due to some scaling with 6-Paths Naruto, Sasuke, Kaguya, and Might Guy. His fastest jutsu, at least quantifiably, should be the Light Fang Jutsu, which is stated to cut all things at the speed of light. I'm going to reiterate that Kaido should be faster than this attack due to speed scaling from Gear 5 Luffy, and my research did put him at approximately FTL+. In other words, he is faster than Ten Tails Madara, but the difference shouldn't be so massive that Madara can't do anything. What makes this fight complicated above all else is Madara gets unquantifiably more powerful as his fights progressed. He absorbed the God Tree, gained a second Rinnegan, and even a third eye with his Rinne Sharingan. Each of these boosts his strength by an amount that I'm not too sure of, and there isn't much information out there besides his fights. Also, I can't say for certain if his durability or speed increased any further since he did get blitzed by Sasuke and was severed in half after absorbing the God Tree. After getting his other Rinnegan back, he gained the ability to now create 4 more Limbo clones, but Naruto's Shadow clones were able to keep them in check with Taijutsu alone. Naruto and Sasuke had an answer for almost everything he did. Madara's goal was to activate the Infinite Tsukuyomi, so all he needed was time, but everything he threw at those two was dealt with. I know there's this idea in the Naruto community that Madara would have won if he wasn't double-crossed by Black Zetsu, but I just don't see it. He got one shot by Naruto and Sasuke twice, once each. He was literally severed in half twice, so if it wasn't for his near immortality, that would have been it. He didn't really land any attack on either of them besides a Limbo clone knocking Naruto away, and even after multiple power-ups, he was still only competing with them. We never got to see his full power after he unlocked the Rinne Sharingan, so I can't really include that version. The best I can give Ten Tails Madara is the second Rinnegan and the God Tree, but he only really gets more Limbo clones and arguably more chakra. So, does Kaido win? Yes and no, but mostly no. This part of the fight is the entire reason why I put a disclaimer at the start of the video. The simple fact is, Kaido has no way to counter Infinite Tsukuyomi once it's activated. He loses on the spot. It doesn't matter at what point in the fight Madara chooses to do this, once he decides to activate the Infinite Tsukuyomi and succeeds, the fight is over. Kaido doesn't know about the attack, and would only have a chance to stop it if Future Sight is already active. I do think if Kaido sees into the future, he could stop Madara since he is faster and Madara needs to get close enough to the moon and activate the jutsu. Horizon Meteor isn't a factor since it only slowed down Naruto and Sasuke because there were people nearby they had to save. Kaido can just fly straight to Madara the same way he moved towards Luffy when he dodged the omnidirectional Gum Gum Hydra and dodged the 5 Limbo clones as they tried to stop him. But that's more or less wishful thinking. Ultimately, you can argue Madara just sends a ton of Wood Clone Susanoo, Limbo clones, and just spams Kaido with Jutsu so he can get enough time to activate the Infinite Tsukuyomi. If you don't include Infinite Tsukuyomi or Madara doesn't immediately use it, then the fight is much more interesting. For starters, Truth-Seeking Orbs. TSO are the application of every chakra nature at once and are even more complex versions of particle style that can destroy anything they touch. They are also malleable so they can change size and shape to fit whatever situation the user may see fit. Whether or not they destroy something seems to be up to the user since there are moments where they do touch non-6-path users and nothing happens. Madara seems to change their shape less than Obito since he doesn't do it too often, besides creating shields or a new staff. Now, the TSO can be interacted with. They can be destroyed and they don't regenerate. Naruto progressively had less and less TSO as his battles with Madara, Kaguya, and Sasuke progressed. Sasuke could even destroy them with Susanoo arrows, and that wasn't his full power. Madara also never shows the capability to recreate TSO. Not to mention, they seem to be capable of breaking if enough physical force is applied and one of Guy's Sekizo punches were enough to force Madara's body through a TSO barrier. Kaido can just deal with them through the application of advanced Conqueror's Haki, since he can hit them without making physical contact like when he clashed with Luffy. As for whether or not his attacks are as strong as Zekizo, look at it this way. He and Big Mom performed the Conquest of the Sea attack, an advanced Conqueror's Haki attack that would have dealt devastating damage to Luffy, Zoro, Law, Kid, and Killer. Zoro was only able to withstand the attack for less than a second, and it would have killed him if Law didn't move them all out of the way with his rune. This may have been a combined attack, but Kaido should still be able to replicate a similar technique on his own without Big Mom and with about half of its strength. Zekizo is just a blast of air from a punch. Conquest of the Sea is a blast of air imbued with Conqueror's Haki. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide whether or not they are at least relative, but as far as I'm concerned, Conquest of the Sea is by far one of the strongest attacks in the verse, and the worst generation couldn't have dodged it without the split second Zoro gave them to teleport out of the way. Half of its power came from Kaido, so I'm of the opinion that Kaido could at least deal with the TSO by knocking them away with advanced Conqueror's Haki. As for speed, the TSO don't seem to be as fast as Madara. When Guy tried to hit Madara with a direct Zekizo punch, Madara threw 3 TSOs at him, and before they made contact, Rock Lee and Minato were able to intercept the orbs and teleport away before the hit. Lee had the 6th gate active at the time, so this kunai feat shouldn't be close to light speed, and even if it was, it would still mean the TSO are slower than Kaido. As for the 5 Limbo clones, they would definitely cause a problem for Kaido. The sheer magnitude of Jutsu Madara should be capable of throwing at Kaido in conjunction with the Limbo clones may cause Kaido to actually take decent damage. Under the assumption that through all of these power-ups allow Madara to at least hurt Kaido with Taijutsu, and the TSO can potentially deal either massive damage or straight up kill Kaido. I do think that if Madara and Kaido both try to enjoy the fight, it's a lot closer than you might think, considering Kaido does outstat Madara in basically every regard. But Madara has more hacks abilities and much more techniques at his disposal. I don't believe Kaido gets overwhelmed, and in fact, I haven't even mentioned his drunken dragon Bagua. If Kaido enjoys a fight enough, he will get drunk. When that happens, he becomes even more dangerous than when he's sober and an absolute demon. Kaido is completely unpredictable while in this state, since his mood rapidly changes and the attacks he performs and the transformation he's in varies between these states. The difference in strength is so massive that Kaido forced Luffy to activate Gear 4, which multiplied his strength and speed several times, and he was outperforming nearly everything Luffy did, even with Future Sight active. I don't think Madara would be able to completely deal with the drunken Bagua, since Kaido's final state turns him into a bloodthirsty drunk that hard blitzed Gear 4 Luffy mid-attack, and all of this is before Gear 5th. For this last section, I'll just list a couple of final points and questions because, as I said, depending on what information you choose to accept, the outcome changes. Do you think Madara can overwhelm Kaido with enough jutsu that can't really hurt him, or aren't fast enough to land even if they can? If Kaido has Future Sight active, I don't think Madara is likely to put him in a position where either he can rip out his soul or tag him with multiple TSO. Infinite Tsukuyomi is his most consistent win condition. You'd have to plug a controller into him otherwise. Do you think Kaido can kill Ten Tails Madara? Madara is near immortal. He can be sliced in half and simply regenerate. Kaido should be faster and stronger, but he can't seal Madara, and the only attack that nearly killed him was the Night Guy, so the only way one could argue Kaido wins is if his attacks scale above Night Guy. He could potentially stop Infinite Tsukuyomi, but he would need to have Future Sight active and beeline it to Madara while also dodging Limbo clones. In other words, you'd have to plug a controller into him. What about the perfect Susanoo? Madara never used it while he was a Jinchuriki. Whether or not it would gain wings or scale to Sasuke Susanoo, which can slash meteors in half, it doesn't matter. One Piece characters have been capable of slashing meteors and other large structures since before Kaido was introduced. The fight was already complicated enough, and I didn't want to think up a hypothetical Ten-Tails Susanoo. Can Kaido hit harder than Night Guy? If I go by some calcs that I found while researching this video, Luffy's Bajorang gun calced to be over 1 Zetaton in terms of AP. That is a small planetary feat. If you go by this calc, then Kaido's Flame Dragon Bagua, which was comparable since it hard struggled with the Bajorang gun, should be capable of one-shotting Madara. The highest AP I could find for Might Guy was much higher than Moon level. So going by this, Kaido's Flame Dragon Bagua should have enough AP to kill Madara. Guy did bend space, but every single piece of information and calculation that I can find on the matter calcs him at most at light speed, and Kaido is faster than that. The Flame Dragon Bagua is also heat-based, so Madara should completely melt, and there's no way for me to say if Madara could tank the attack better after absorbing the God Tree and getting a second Rinnegan. Luffy's Bajorang gun being small planetary also makes sense if you consider that the One Piece world is absolutely gigantic. I need to make it clear that the One Piece world is likely multiple times larger than Earth. There isn't an exact scale for how much larger it is, however, Marco stated you could start counting islands and not finish till you're past 10 or 20 million. And for reference, our planet has about 900,000 islands. There are also some different calculations that put islands like Alabasta anywhere around double the size of Russia and bigger than Africa. For reference, in all of the images of the Grand Line, Alabasta isn't a massive island in comparison to many others. The globe in the Tree of Knowledge on Ohara has the 6 moons, with one moon having a smaller celestial body in its orbit. The One Piece world also does have 4 seasons and likely has 24-hour days and 365 days a year. I understand that some may say that if this were the case, then there would be a ton of ramifications. Oda likely never considered the implications or ramifications of some of these statements, but if it's taken into consideration, then the One Piece planet is absolutely massive, and I'll repeat myself, this is fiction. It can be as big as it needs to be, and it can still work like how our planet works. That being said, the One Piece world is at least twice as big as ours and easily over 10 times larger if you include some pixel measurements for calcs. If Infinite Tsukuyomi isn't a factor, could Kaido win? Yes, but only if you believe that at least the Flame Dragon Bagua is stronger than Night Guy. So there you have it, Kaido versus Madara. The research alone for this fight was kind of overwhelming, but I wouldn't mind doing it again if you guys enjoyed the content. If you did, then I would really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe, since a lot went into the making of this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Peace out.